that I am.
Where did Jesus say, I am God, worship me? This is a question you hear from critics all the time. The only problem with that, it's like asking the question, where did Jesus say, I am the goat? It just didn't happen. He didn't speak English. We need to appreciate Jesus as a Jewish Messiah within his Jewish context. So let's actually dig into the question.
That I am.
Now, don't worry. God doesn't really sound like Optimus Prime. That's AI's fault. But ultimately, let's have a look at one of the names of God being I am. In John 8:48, Jesus said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. Now, this is a scripture where Jesus is invoking the divine name. And this is why the Jewish people actually try to pick up stones to stone him for blasphemy. However, the critics don't like this one per se because they believe John was written much, much later after the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And so over time, he became deified and he became the God incarnate, and so that the story changed. That's what they say. So even though the deity of Christ is unequivocally clear in the Gospel of John, the critics will say because John is written much later, we have to discount it. So let's focus on what the critics consider the most historically reliable gospel, being the Gospel of Mark, which they do believe that sections of were used by Luke and Matthew, and see where Jesus' deity is declared. Now, before we embark on this, we need to understand that Jesus has many titles. Let's have a look at a few of them. Jesus is referred to as the Son of God, the Son of David, Messiah, the Son of Man, Emmanuel, the Good Shepherd, the Lamb. The title that we're actually going to address today, which is the most crucial, is the Son of Man. Let's take a look. The Son of Man in Hebrew is Ben Adam, or Son of Adam, which simply means a human being. So let's look at the way that Mark writes Jesus' words in his Gospel. In Mark 2:10, but that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. Mark 2:28, so the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. Now the way Jesus is using the Son of Man title, it seems to invoke some sort of authority that's well beyond the human, such as being able to forgive sins or being Lord of the Sabbath. And there's only one place in the Old Testament where we see the Son of Man used in such a way. Let's take a look at Daniel 7. I saw in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven there came one like a son of man. And he came to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him. And to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve and worship him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed. This scripture was quite troubling for Second Temple Judaism because it was one that looked like a human that was going to receive all glory and dominion and a kingdom, an everlasting one. And he would be given all authority on earth, and all nations and peoples and languages would serve him or worship him. This was troubling within a monotheistic worldview. Now, Daniel is an important book when it comes to the Messiah because of the famous 70 weeks prophecy in Daniel 9. And it is noteworthy within critical scholarship that they do believe that Daniel was written around 200 BC, and there's some other positions where Daniel was actually written in 600 BC. Nonetheless, there's still a couple hundred years before Jesus that it was written, and within the prophecy there's the coming of the Messiah, and that the temple would be rebuilt within a troubled time. The Messiah would come, he would then be violently killed, and then the city and the temple be destroyed, being Jerusalem. And this is the actual time sequential prophecy by Daniel as to what would happen when the Messiah would come. It's important to understand this because this Son of Man title that Jesus is actually invoking is reminiscent of this Daniel 7, but we don't know that yet. It is only up in the trial of Jesus we actually figure out which Son of Man title Jesus is actually invoking. Let's take a look. But he remained silent and made no answer. Again the high priest asked him, are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed? And Jesus said, I am. And you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming with the clouds of heaven. And the high priest tore his garments and said, what further witnesses do we need? You have heard his blasphemy. What is your decision? And they all condemned him as deserving death. It's in this moment we see Jesus, that the Son of Man title he's invoking is from Daniel 7. This is the scripture where he is given all glory, dominion, and everyone's going to worship him. This is him declaring his deity in front of Caiaphas, hence the blasphemy charge. Now, whether you agree with that or not, we have some of the best critical scholars in the world, like Bart Ehrman, who don't know why Jesus is charged with blasphemy in the scripture. I haven't seen Bart Ehrman actually address this. And if there is a critical take on it, feel free to leave it in the comments. I'm not saying I have the only take on this, but it does explain why the blasphemy charge was given to Jesus, because of the deity he was claiming from Daniel 7 in front of Caiaphas. He says, you know the Son of Man from Daniel 7? That's me. You're going to see the Son of Man in all glory, in all power, seated at the right hand of the Father. So this is the moment where Jesus declares his deity. So if anyone does ask, where does Jesus say, I am God, worship me? It's actually in Mark 14. The most critically reliable gospel out of all the synoptics, the one that the critics take most seriously, the one they say that it's copied from in terms of or used as a source for Matthew and Luke. And it's also the one that's most clear as to where the Son of Man title is being invoked from, and it's clearly from Daniel 7. Jesus is that Son of Man figure from Daniel 7, the one that's given all glory and dominion, and the one that we will all worship. If you do like these videos, feel free to click subscribe, leave a like or a comment. If you disagree, I get plenty of critical feedback in the comments, so let's see what you guys have to say, but I'm happy to address them. Thanks for watching.